So, Kankan is one of the most popular artists to come out of the recently resurging SoundCloud wave and arguably even almost surpassing his underground status as a whole. Having really only started taking music seriously in the past 2 years, but still having such a wide discography with both plenty of hits and just as many misses, which we'll get into later. And before we really get into it, I've already made 2 videos on both Autumn and Summrs doing basically the same thing here. So if you like my information, the channel, the videos, the ratings, whatever, do whatever you do to show love, and let's get into it and find out where did Kankan really start. Born September 22nd in the year 2000 and raised in Dallas, Texas, Kankan wouldn't initially be interested in music at all, at least from a technical standpoint, because with it being Kan, he was under the impression going into his teen years that all instrumentals and music was just auto-generated by computers, which happens. But being that Kan was heavily into artists like Future and Speaker Knockers, he would eventually stumble into a new rabbit hole being instrumentals. He would eventually download FL Studio from YouTube and begin working and practicing instrumentals and just producing as a whole. And at the beginning, it was ass, as it should be. And the first mention of Kan's producing career I could find dates all the way back to August 9th, 2015, which links to what I'm assuming is a type beat called Pour Up. And it's based on some of Kan's early inspirations, like as mentioned, Future and also Metro Boomin. But going forward, he would only really continue to pick up steam as a producer, making good connections with now an obviously washed ass rapper Lil Boom. Their first collab would come on a now archived song called Got It All by obviously Lil Boom, which this was all really just a teaser for the next big track called Infamously Caillou, which is now just more of a relic of its time, and for what it was at the time, it just really took off. And this song really only was a setup for Kan's biggest placement to date, being Fuck a Swisher by Smoke Perp and Xavier Wolf. This song came out along with the Cole Bennett video and almost instantly was doing crazy numbers, and riding off the back of this song, he would end up getting another placement of the next year, being with Pump and Famous Dex on a track called Talkin' Shit. And basically, to summarize all this, shit was going well. But being that Kan was starting to form a name in the scene and was still posting his type beats and starting to grow, he would obviously still have people try to steal his beats, which is what would happen and would in a way form the beginning of a relationship between both Kan and another artist in the scene, Louis VD, or as we know him, Summrs. Summrs would end up stealing a couple instrumentals, like on track 5 of Summrs' second official tape called I Believe in Myself, where Summrs stole one of Kan's beat for track 5 Polar, and Kan was extra mad because at the time Summrs was also asked to, which for a while left them on rocky terms. But over time, Summrs eventually would heavily polish his sound going into early 2018, with his music starting to take off due to its fresh sound and overall popularity, especially on tracks like Summer Liu Kang and Pat Granovich. And from there, they talked it out and set up a first-time meetup at the Galleria in Texas, which is where the video in the background comes from. This was Summrs and Kan's first ever time meeting up in real life. And at the time, Kan was already well aware of Summrs' friend, Trap God Benji, or as we know him, Autumn, because Autumn also at the time had been making a name in the community as yet again another producer, and Kan has even since admitted to stealing Autumn's early beats to rap on as well, which kind of makes this whole thing come full circle. And at the time, Kan was doing good as a producer, but was also starting to realize he had talents in other areas, but wasn't sure if he wanted to commit, so he did what all people do for validation and posted an IG poll. And obviously everyone agreed on the poll, so he decided to commit to making music. Was it good? Next. Skipping over the 2018 D1 Hellworld and Slayworld chapter, because that could be a whole video in itself, we come to another artist important in Kankan's early discography, being SSGkobe. Kobe, or at the time Lil Kobe, was picking up traction as a talented and versatile artist, and was heavily engaged in the scene and would often link up with Kan and Summrs at an Airbnb, and eventually released music with Summrs on his second tape called Tranquility, along with the next tape called Rebirth, which dropped the same day as a collab tape between SSGkobe and Kankan, which was called Radiant, released December 25th, 2018. This tape, as mentioned, is a collab tape between Kobe and Kan, and it's only solid because of Kobe. If you think Kan is low energy nowadays, just listen to this tape. It's like, I don't know, it's like he's falling asleep on some tracks, like on Machine, where Kan like fights for his life on the beat. It's got its charms, but like I said, Kobe goes in on his verses. Like on Falling, Kobe gives a catchy and overall solid ass verse, along with Kan, who delivers a pretty weird, different flow and some energy, I guess. Overall, if this tape had better mixing and Kan wasn't damn near dead for half the tape, it could go a little higher, but for me, this tape is a 4 out of 10. Kobe deserved better. And My Glow, released February 1st, 2019. And this is actually a really solid tape. It's only about 4 tracks long, but all the tracks have their highlights, with Kan delivering his typical lazy ass delivery, but the production here is a lot more solid. And there is some experimentation from Kan, like on some more produced by Alto SGP, with this really kind of upbeat Macklemore piano type vibe. But it's a really solid contrast to Kan's delivery, along with obviously Sumo featuring Summrs, which it's Summrs in his prime, so you know. And Kan actually gives a pretty solid verse on that track too, with Kan kind of just writing out the beat, and obviously Summrs carries, but still. And although tracks like Kan Brent are pretty fucking bad with these like weird kicks and this odd melody and Kan's delay, it's just not good. But still, overall, this tape is a step up and hits most of the time based on its length. So overall, 6 out of 10. Solid tape. Radiant 2, released June 26th, 2019. It's a sequel to 1 and another collab tape between Kobe and Kan, and this one is kinda a step up, but early Kan can just not do it over these ambient beats like on Culture. He just doesn't have the energy or the delivery to make the song like interesting at all. So a lot of the time it's just like one line, then ambient echo with ad-libs on repeat until a small flow switch, which, you know. Although a lot of the songs sit off here, like again produced by Popstar Cal, which just has this stupid ass dramatic violin sample with like these hard-hitting distorted 808s that hit pretty hard, and Kobe does this thing as usual, pulling through for most of the tape. But overall, none of it's that crazy, and in terms of ratings, I'd give this tape a 5 out of 10. It is a step up from 1 though. Pack Runner EP released August 14th, 2019, and this EP has a really solid intro track called Archive featuring Izaya Tiji, produced by Thrillboy. This beat is just perfect for both Kan and Izaya, with Izaya giving a really solid intro verse and Kan actually doing a really solid transition into his verse. But the song does kind of drag on too long, but it's still solid. But here it comes, the ghosting ad-libs. Holy shit, did Kan abuse this while it was a thing. For like a good portion of these tapes going forward, Kan just drives the classic ghosting ad-lib style into the dirt. And the thing is, I don't even hate it. I think Kan is one of the like best artists that makes use of that style, but he did it so damn much going forward and still on this tape. But still, this tape is still solid and it lands at around a 6 out of 10. Yet again, another solid tape. Live Fast, Die Slay released September 14th, 2019, and this whole tape, as the title suggests, is like, guess an anthem for Slayworld or a tribute, whatever you want to say. This tape is actually really good for its length. All 3 songs hit hard as shit, and they all have their charm. While the ghosting is still there on tracks like Can't Speak on it and 380 Hellcat, it's not really too overbearing. And on most of the songs, it only really adds to the song. One classic off here is Ain't Missin'. This song is insanely short with like 40 seconds of instrumental and like a 20-second verse, but Zangang just murks the beat with a smooth ass a jazz sample, and Kan's verse is basically just what you would want and expect from Kan. It's just overall a really good tape, and going off length, I'd say it's an 8 out of 10. Definitely up there. Benji Kan released September 18th, 2019, and if not obvious from the title, this is a collab tape between arguably the most or one of the most legendary underground producers and Kan. Well, kinda underground at this point. This tape's only about 3 tracks long and the beats are insane, and Kan does deliver a solid verse on CPN and also gives solid but short verses on Austin and XD45, and he also experiments with some different semi-aggressive flows, and considering that this tape is only 3 tracks long, it's overall a 7 out of 10. As always, Benji kills it. Kankan, or self-titled, released November 8th, 2019, and this album has plenty of hits and classics like Live Fast, Die Slay, Let's Go, Been On It, and obviously which has been remixed to all hell by obviously Summrs, Izaya Tiji twice, and also Mac 10 and Vante. And for good reason, because that's arguably one of Zangang's just best instrumentals in general. It's just such a crazy ass beat. But for every good song on this project, there's a mid-song to match, like Sun, Free Bands, and ACOG, along with this tape having basically 3 interludes on a 13-song project. But if you take away all the bad things and just kind of look at it from just the pure good music, I'd say it lands at around a 7 out of 10. Overall, a really solid project. I'm not into you. Before K2 released March 5th, 2020, and this tape is only a 3-track song and starts off with a really solid intro track called Tiptoe featuring Izaya Tiji, and both Kan and Izaya run this beat, and Izaya gives a great verse in like a whisperish delivery, and Kan delivers a solid verse, and this song just kind of boils down to production. This beat really just suits both of their styles really well. I wish Wi-Fi and Kan would work a little bit more often, but you know. Another track off this tape called 6 Figures just really pisses me off. This Kan just gives such a low energy verse over such an insane beat from Zay Skills, and the song just ends up being a throwaway. It's not good. And overall, this tape doesn't have too much to judge. There's just really only hits once, so yeah, I don't know. Overall, I'd rate it a 5.5 out of 10. Slightly better than mid. Oxy, released April 10th, 2020, is a 3-track EP, and it's only just solid. Codeine, produced by Bristow, has such nasty 808s with that little faint choir in the background, but Kan just kind of delivers his typical lazy-ass verse in a pretty uncreative way, which kind of stands true for most of this whole EP, and overall, I'd just say this EP is just mid, so at a 5 out of 10. But I guess the takeaway is that the production's good. Kangiani, released April 19th, 2020, and feel free to argue with me, but Kan has really no better producer than Eddie. Their styles match perfectly together, and they make some just crazy Dark Knight like ambient music. This EP is honestly really solid, and the only song that falls short is surprisingly the Summrs feature on Ran Off. Not even because his verse is bad, it's just that he recorded the verse on like a tin can that he found at Applebee's. The mic quality is like actually dog shit. But Kan kills his verse on that song, along with being in the A, which is just an example of Kan doing what Kan's best at, which is just short verses on dark distorted beats with like minor ghosting and like 1 to 2 key melodies. Overall, this project is short and sweet, and it's a 7 out of 10. Really solid. Interstellar EP released May 29th, 2020, and this tape starts with Ghost Mode Part 5,672,300. You get the point. The 808s hit hard though, and it's slightly better than usual, I guess. But 2 songs, being Prove It and Obsessed featuring Frank's Last Day, are solid. Frank gives a solid verse, nothing special, and Kan follows up with a pretty solid verse where he just typical falling asleep energy, works well over the beat. Yeah. And Prove It is killed yet again by Zangang with some crazy kick and 808 patterns, along with some soft leads in the background. It's just the reverse. Everything about that beat's good. Zangang is just a goat, in all honesty, I don't know. But overall, this project is just a 6 out of 10. There are solid singles, but nothing crazy. Before K3 released July 4th, 2020, and this tape starts off with a song called Cash Sum, where Kan just really amps up with both the production and the flow going crazy, along with Kan also upping his energy on his delivery, just making it overall a really solid track. The only track on here I'm not crazy about, surprisingly, is Scored featuring Summrs, which it's just that the song doesn't do too much for me. Kan delivers a pretty decent verse, same with Summrs, but just not much happens with the beat overall, and it's just kind of a boring song. Along with them, like always, leaving in a minute of empty instrumental, which, you know, happens, whatever. But still, this tape is actually consistent, and overall I'd say it's a 7 out of 10. Kan did his thing. Kan Gianni 2 released August 13th, 2020, and this is an unfinished EP with 2 tracks available as of right now, and both of these songs are pretty bad. But I'm not gonna rant because I'm pretty sure most of these are pretty unfinished, or at least feel that way, so for now it's unrated. If you want to judge it yourself, it'll be in the description, but yeah. In My Glow 2 released August 19th, 2020. This 3-song tape starts with a Chief Keef remix of Thought I Had One, and it's alright, it's nothing special. He just isn't interesting with that kind of production, and although this tape does have a song called To Level My Cup, which features Goonie and Izaya Tiji, it's just pretty solid. But the instrumental doesn't really fit anyone besides Kan, so it's kind of weird to hear Goonie and Izaya over it, but it's not bad overall. And given the length of this tape, I'd say it's overall a 6 out of 10. Slightly above average, but just alright. Fast Cars and Codeine released September 23rd, 2020, and is in my opinion Kankan's best full-length project up till 2021. Each song off this project can stand by itself to some degree and have replay value, with 2 of the obvious standouts being Perfect Persona featuring Summrs, which in my opinion is Kankan's best verse period. Excluding different instrumentals and song structure, just raw flow and bars, it's just his best. The second standout is Rocket featuring Autumn, which is just such a good song with a solid Autumn verse, but for some reason Autumn's verse is unironically 16 seconds, but overall this project is a really good listen, and in terms of a rating, I would go ahead and give it an 8 out of 10. How good the underground would be if we didn't have beasts is, yeah. Before K4 released November 19th, 2020, and this tape is 5 tracks long, and Kan does some experimentation, I guess, on 2 tracks being High Tech and A, where Kan just raps over these energy type beats, which is just the funniest shit to me. It's not even bad, it's just that Kan's delivery over these like Flint and Detroit style beats is just, it's so stupid to me. The other 3 tracks off here aren't too crazy. This tape just feels more like a fun in-between tape, which I think is what it's meant to be. And overall, it's just alright, and it's just kind of a funny tape, so I'd give it around a 6 out of 10. And as Kan said, pour up green, feel like Yoda. Codeine Graveyard released December 1st, 2020, and this tape starts with a Polo G type beat where Kan just delivers this typical Kan verse over it, so it doesn't like work at all. And overall, for the most part of this tape, Kan is just like extra zooted. It feels like a throwaway tape. He doesn't bring any energy, he doesn't experiment, there's just really nothing going on. Although there is one really good track on here called God on a Wave, produced by Brent Rambo, where Kan just snaps. His flow and delivery is good. Even though the song is only 45 seconds, it's still a great listen. But other than that, there's not really anything special going on here, so overall I'd say this is a 5 out of 10. And it's kind of just barely not a 4 out of 10. before AMGs and SRTs, released December 3rd, 2020, and this is a full-length album and it's good. I don't really have too many complaints or comments. I will say that Ain't Slay featuring Summrs is obviously a really solid song. Kan does his thing along with Summrs, who drops a solid ass verse, along with other songs in this tape like Bitch I Get Money and No Act, which are just classic simple Kan songs with good production. There's also a different version of Zaza by Goonie where Yeet just gets kicked off, which, come on man, but it's still not overall a bad tape. But this tape also isn't crazy, so I'd say it lands it right at a 6 out of 10. Could have been better, but could have been worse. And finally, we have Live Fast, Die Slay 2, released December 25th, 2020, and this tape just low-key pisses me off. Why can't Kan do everything on here just more often? Starting with the first 2 slower tracks being Addict and Fuck College. Both are beautiful. Kan does amazing over these instrumentals, and it all really just clicks together and makes them both good and memorable music, and not forgetting the Goonie and Yeet features on here because they both kill their parts and add a lot of replay, etc. I'm just gonna be straight up, I love this tape, and on Kan's parts there could have been some more improvement, but overall this tape's an 8 out of 10. In my opinion, it's some of Kan's just best work. And besides that, there's only 2 other collab tapes that I left out of this video, which would be Codeine Over Hose between Trapstar Moolah and Kankan, and another one being between Suave and Kankan being called Greenlight. Both these tapes have their highlights, with Codeine Over Hose being a personal favorite. I would rank it probably around a 7 out of 10. It's just classic plug and be Kankan, and Trapstar Moolah plays his part. He doesn't do too good, but it's not too bad either. Same can be said for Greenlight. I actually prefer Kankan on basically both of the singles that are on that tape, and Suave doesn't even do bad. It's just that the beats, I guess, are more tailored towards Kankan. But on a real note, thank you guys all for the support. The amount of just love and comments and feedback and all that stuff I've been getting is crazy. I'm always trying to improve the video, so if you see anything bad or just looks wonky or whatever, just let me know in the comments. I also recently set up a Spotify playlist and a Discord server, so if you guys want to join up, message me, do whatever, we maybe hop in VC or whatever. That'll be all in the description below, and yeah, that pretty much sums up everything. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Y'all have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys later.